Hey guys, it's Vinny.
And this is Joe.
Get ready. On this episode, we are going to deliver to you the most accurate power chart for Dragon Ball Super you have ever seen. Everybody, it's definitely possible and it's time for us to do it. We believe, after much thought and a lot of time and a lot of calculation, that we have put together the most accurate power scaling chart ever created at this point for Dragon Ball Super. You have to stick with us through this entire episode. We believe that by the end of it, you will see exactly where everyone matches up with each other better than any other chart that has been given before. And the whole idea here is, number one, how do you do this? And where do you start from? Now, there's a whole bunch of controversy on what's going on with this, but we're going to be honest. The only place to start and the only place to go is Toriyama's own words and his own numbers.
Yeah, we feel like you have to go to the source. I mean, Toriyama is the guy who made Dragon Ball. So by taking his words and his numbers, it makes the most sense to take it from him than any other source out there.
And we're aware of all the controversy. You know, Toriyama, he didn't really think about what was going on. He didn't know Dragon Ball Super was going to be coming up. Those numbers were just for Battle of the Gods. He didn't know what he was really talking about. He kind of made it off the cuff. Yeah, and more and more and more. We're aware of all that stuff. But the fact of the matter is, you are talking about a guy who spends his entire life writing these stories, all right? You're talking about a guy who basically invented power levels when it came to Dragon Ball Z. Do you not think that he actually doesn't think about what the power level scales are between a guy like Beerus and Whis and Goku? Of course he does. So why does his off-the-cuff statement seem like it's not that accurate or precise? Because he probably doesn't want it to look that way, because when you do that, people pan you for it when they don't like the way the scales are going, all right? So that means that there is something to Toriyama's numbers. They're not outdated because Goku and Whis and Beerus from Battle of the Gods are the same Goku, Whis, and Beerus that are in Dragon Ball Super. They didn't change. Just because he had a new sort of thing happen doesn't mean that the old one ended. And his numbers work. They absolutely work. And so there's only one more thing to do. Let's go ahead and do this thing. All right? You ready for this? First off, what can't you use Toriyama's numbers for? You cannot use his numbers for a direct linear scale. It cannot be done. If you try to say that Goku is a 6 and Beerus is a 10 and that Whis is a 15 on a linear scale, that's not correct. Because if you made that statement, then if Goku got twice as strong, then he would be stronger than Beerus. And if he got 3 times as strong, then he would be stronger than Whis. That is ridiculous. So Toriyama's 6, 10, and 15 numbers are not a linear scale. It doesn't make sense that way. In addition, you cannot use Toriyama's numbers to give power level numbers. We're not going to tell you that Goku is 115 quadrillion power level and Whis is some other crazy ridiculous number. That cannot be done as well. So then what can you use Toriyama's numbers for? How can you correctly use these numbers? Well, if you're not going to do it with a linear scale, you have to model it after an inverse scale. In addition, if you're not going to give power level numbers, then you're going to have to give power scaling, which means that you can show a relationship between one person's power level and another person's power level, so you can see sort of the strength difference between the two. What does it mean when you don't use a linear scale or you use an inverse scale? Well, light is a great example of that. So taking a look at light, you would think if you got like a foot away from a light source and then you went just one more foot away from that light source, that you would have half the amount of light. But it's not true. It's actually 1/4 the amount of light. When you're talking about inverse scales, you can do them an inverse squared scale or an inverse cube scale, meaning it's not a linear scale, that the differences are squared or cubed. We don't want to get too complicated here, but when you take Toriyama's numbers and you apply them to an inverse scale, they work beautifully. some of the most amazing stuff that I've seen when we're putting these calculations in. They work amazingly. Stick with us on this one. By the way, the cube scale is the one that we found that works the best with Toriyama's numbers. And the things that we actually use, the cube scale, the inverse cube scale, for things like gravitational fields, radiation, and even gravity in the real world. So it's not a far stretch to say, well, wait a second, what about these power levels that he's talking about in Super to use a cube scale? It's not like we're doing some crazy way off thing here. We use these types of scales for different sorts of energy sources already in the real world. The thing, though, is we don't have a perfect source number for Super, so we don't know what the perfect number is. So we can't use it inversely going backwards towards Goku, meaning like Whis' power would be more perfect, then Beerus would be a little bit less, and Goku would be less. So we're going to flip the inverse scale around, and then we're going to work our way up to Whis' level of power, all right? Last, before we get to this chart, because I know all of you want to see the chart, because we're going to give it to you here, you can still use the linear scale for a few things. Those things that were put into the Dragon Ball universe before Super can be used on the linear scale, like the Kaioken boost or the Fusion boost. In fact, not only can those be used on the linear scale, they have to be used on the linear scale because they don't make sense in the new Dragon Ball scale, and we're going to show you how that works as well. So you guys all ready for this? Here we go. We're going to start with Goku God Form Red. On this perfect scaling chart that we've come up with here, as you can see that Goku is going to come in at a 216 when you cube the power level 6, all right? Now, you can see there on the chart, I put the 6 there as an indication of what Toriyamas number would look like on this chart. That is Goku at full strength, God Form Red. He's a 6 on this chart. We're using the cube scale, though. And then we move on, and we're going to move to Goku in the blue form. Now, there isn't 100% accuracy on how strong Goku is on the blue form. So is there a little headcanon here? Yes, there is. But we're not stretching it too far by saying he's probably about twice as strong as the red form. All right? He didn't get just a little bit stronger. He didn't get a crazy amount stronger. He's probably right around twice as strong. If you're not okay with that, you're probably still somewhere around that number. So on this chart, we put Goku in the blue form as twice as strong. And by the way, on Toriyama's scale, that would fall as a 7.5 on his scale. On the cube scale, you can see it's twice as strong as red. That moves us now to Goku when he goes Kaioken times 20 in the blue form. Remember, when you apply the Kaioken boost, you have to first apply it on the linear scale and then add it to the cube scale. So this is where the linear scale still comes into play. We know, based off of previous understanding, that when you do a Kaioken, it basically either doubles your power, it triples it, quadruples it, whatever number you pick. It's always been a linear value increase that in the Dragon Ball universe. It's never been anything different. So when he uses Kaioken times 20 and Goku in his blue form is a 7.5 on the linear scale, you take 7.5, you multiply it by the 20, you get a power increase of 150 on the cube scale. So you take his 432 number, you add the 150, and you get a 582 on the scale. And you can see the power increase that he gets when he uses the Kaioken times 20. What doesn't happen is he doesn't get 20 times stronger. In the blue form, it's not like, well, we're going to use it as a linear scale. He's 7.5. He gets 20 times stronger than a 7.5. That is ridiculous. That does not happen. That does not work. But when you use the scaling this way, it works perfectly. Guess what? We're moving on to Beerus now. And this is the one that everyone wants to see, because how does blue form and red form compare to Beerus on this scale? Well, take a look. You have Beerus there, and he would be a perfect 1,000 on this scaling. 10 times 10 times 10 on the cube scale. And I put the 10 there for you so you can see where Toriyama's 10 would fall. So you see where the 6 falls and where the 10 falls in this? Now you get a good indication. I'm not going to give you power levels. I can't tell you what Beerus's power level is. That's ridiculous. I can't tell you what Goku Red Form's power level is. But now you can see how close Goku in God Form Red is to Beerus. So if If Goku got twice as strong, would he be able to beat Beerus? No. 3 times as strong? No. 4 times? No. He would still not be able to beat Beerus. Is Goku doing his Kaioken attack in the blue form going to beat Beerus? The answer is unequivocally no, it's not going to. And we know a lot of people thought that it would. Like, there's been a lot of sort of argument out there, like, oh, the blue form, Kaioken times 20, it's like right on par with Beerus. It's not. Not on this scale, it's not. And by the way, we totally believe that the last episode of Super actually showed this to be true, because Goku was in his blue form when Kaioken times 20 against Kefla, and Kefla was still handing it to him. Now, there could be all kinds of arguments like, well, Goku wasn't as powerful. You can say whatever you want. He was still in blue form, trying as hard as he could at Kaioken times 20, and Kefla was still going hand in hand with him. Is Kefla stronger than Beerus? No. She's not stronger than Beerus. And by a lot, she's not stronger than Beerus. This chart goes to show you that Beerus would still handedly beat Kefla and Goku in his Kaioken blue form multiplied by 20. Easily. There's no problem for it. So this is where we are on the chart at this point. But we're going to go a little further because we all want to know, where does Jiren fit on this chart? Well, we totally believe, like many other people out there, that Jiren is the guy who is stronger than even the gods of destruction. So we need to give him a number. Again, we have a little bit of headcanon here because we don't know the exact number, but we believe that he is closer in power to the gods than he is to the angels. So all we did was ascribe him 11 on the chart instead of a 10. We just moved him up one number. So when you move him to an 11, this is where you get Jiren power scaling on this chart. So would he be able to beat Beerus? Yeah, he'd probably be able to beat Beerus and the other gods of destruction because he is likely that mortal. Do we 100% know that? We don't 100% know that. But every indication at this point tells us that this is the truth. So when we put him on this power scaling, you could see how much stronger Jiren is now than Beerus, but you can also see how much stronger Jiren is than Goku in his blue form. Goku never stood a chance against Jiren in the blue form, and Goku also doesn't stand a chance against Jiren when he goes Kaioken times 20. There was no hope of that to even happen. Again, we can't give you power levels here, but we can scale the chart for you so you can see how everyone matches up with each other. That brings us to Goku in his Ultra Instinct form. Again, a little bit of headcanon here as well because we don't know how powerful Ultra Instinct is. We only have some indications that it matches up with Jiren, and there's been some statements that he's actually getting more powerful in his Ultra Instinct form. So we think he's at least an 11 on the scale here as an Ultra Instinct. Now, could he get stronger than that? It's possible. Could Jiren be stronger than this? It's possible. We don't have enough information for that yet, but we at least minimally think that they would both fit very well on this scale as an 11 on Toriyama's original chart, and when you put it on this cube chart, which works wonderfully, it puts them right where they are, right where you see them on that chart. And again, we're probably going to see this change as Goku masters his Ultra Instinct at some point, or even moves to a different form or a limit breaker. Finally, that brings us to Whis. Whis is the one, well, what does a 15 on the scale look like? Well, guess what? It's off the chart. It's not even visible on this chart because when you add up his numbers, it brings you to the 3,375. And so let's move on to another chart that'll actually show you where Whis stands. So you can see how much stronger Whis is than a guy like Jiren or even Beerus. So if Beerus got twice as strong, is he going to beat Whis? The answer is no. He's not going to beat Whis. If Goku and Ultra Instinct got twice as strong, he's not going to be. Whis is so much stronger than these guys. He is well beyond them. And you can see the difference between a 6, a 10, and a 15 on the chart. So does the number 6, 10, and 15 work? Yes, they absolutely 100% work. But you can't use them on the linear scale. You have to use them on this inverse scale like we use other types of energy sources for, like radiation or gravity, all right? Just because it's this sort of key or this power level doesn't mean we can't move it to this sort of scaling. We can. Let's get a little bit more interesting with this. What about Vegito? Can we pinpoint Vegito's level scale on this? You know what? Joe and I think we can. And so when you take the power of fusion, which is applied to the linear scale first, and then the cube scale, we actually can fit Vegito on the scale. Well, is he stronger than Beerus? I don't know. Is Beerus stronger than him? Well, now we're starting to get close to Beerus level. So check it out. When you take the fusion, you have to take the max power level. And so we're going to say that's 432 on the cube scale, or about a 7.5 on Toriyama's scale. And then we're going to calculate Vegeta at about the same place. All right. We're just going to keep it simple and say they're both 7.5. So let's go ahead and do this. 7.5 plus 7.5 is 15. We know that the power of a fusion is greater than the sum of the parts. So we're going to subscribe it to a 16 because 16 is greater than the sum of the parts. Multiplied tens of times. Now, yes, it's a little ambiguous and it's not perfect to understand it. So we're just going to multiply it by the 10 because tens of times, we're not going to get into that. So when you take the 16 times the 10, you get a 160. And then they go ahead and fuse. So you add their two power levels together, 432 and 432 on the cube scale, and you get 864. And then you add the power boost that fusion gives based off of the greater than the sum of the parts, multiplied tens of times. So you add the 160, and guess what you get? On our chart, a 1024. Isn't that interesting how unbelievably close that is to Beerus' power level? And not only that, the Kaioshin in the manga stated that it looks like Vegito might be able to be stronger than Master Beerus. Now, we know Kaioshin's been wrong all the time. He's horribly wrong. But there might be something to that statement because it looks like they're so close to each other that would be an amazing battle to see between the two of them. Now, can Beerus have some things up his sleeve? Yes, because it's not just pure power level. There's other things that come into play here when you're fighting each other, like techniques, especially when you're talking about universal power levels here. So does that mean that Vegito would beat Beerus? By no means does it mean that. But their power levels are unbelievably close to each other. One thing I really like about this is the fact that when we did this chart with Vegito's power level, we didn't get some crazy number that looked like it was like 30 times stronger than Whis was, or some crazy number that was just a little bit stronger than Blue. We got a number that put him right at Beerus' level, which seems extremely accurate to us. So what are we trying to say? At the end of the day here, Toriyama's numbers work. When you use the inverse scale and you apply it to the power levels, you can get probably the most accurate power scaling chart that has existed up until this date for Dragon Ball Super, and we are giving it to you guys right here. Take a look at the chart, copy and paste it, share it with other people. We are telling you that these numbers, that these power scales here are the most accurate picture you will get of how close in power each one of these individuals are. So if you ever had a question of where Jiren stands with Blue form, where Blue form stands with Beerus, take a look at the chart and you will get all the information you need. Can the chart change after time? Of course it can. The more information we get, the better. Like the fact that Kefla went fused and she was able to beat Goku in his Kaioken times 20 in the blue form revealed to us that our chart was probably right on par, and that Kaioken times 20 in the blue form is not as close to Beerus as many people thought it was. And in fact, our chart is probably much more correct than what many other people were thinking about. So we wanted to bring this information to you guys. We know that this is a long one. We're going through a lot of information and we're going through some mathematical stuff here, but we have not seen anything that looks anywhere as close to this, and we wanted to give this to you guys first. So we're asking you, please, on this one, share it. Like this video. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe at this point. If you want to share some information, put it below what you think about this, because we are willing to make little changes here and there, but this chart has worked amazingly when we've applied power scalings from before Dragon Ball Super, when we apply the Dragon Ball Super numbers, and we like the way it looks. It seems like it all fits together very perfectly. We're not giving you power level numbers here, all right? This is just scaling, just to show the indication of how strong people are in comparison to each other. So if there needs to be any update, we're going to give you an update on this one, but this here, guys, you're the first to see it. We think this is the most accurate numbers that you're going to see up until date. So go ahead and give us a like on this one. Subscribe, please, if you haven't. Share the video. Leave a comment below. We hope you enjoyed this one. This is Vinny.
And this is Joe.
As always, until next time, guys.